Hi, no fear, hippie here is here, and today it's time to see what appears on my YouTube recommendations. Um, so I've been recommended a video by Horcer DbD, I think Horceror. I have no idea how to say that. I'm doing my best to though. Looks like it's probably gonna be a longer video for me to respond to than normal, but I'm kind of interested in what he has to say about the new player experience.
Experience in Dead by Daylight is something that's always been sort of kinda not great. With any other game, a player with 500 hours, you would think, oh, wow, they play this game a lot. Baldur's Gate 3, my game of the decade on its release,
True,
I
true.
have 300 hours in. With Dead by Daylight and its constantly expanding roster of killers to play as and against, perks to learn their effects, counters, and how they interact with each unique killer, situation, and survivors, there is a lot to learn.
Add-ons.
Dead by Daylight, at its core, does not have a very good tutorial outside of the extreme basics. How to do a generator, basic commands, and how to hook survivors as the killer. A new
Yep.
player is thrown straight into the
Very
deep
poor
end, and if
tutorial.
this player is brought into games by their friends who already play the game, they are thrown directly into the Mariana Trench without a life preserver.
All the time.
Florida's near
I
total
love the
abortion
little
ban
float
has
in
no
there
real
thing.
exceptions for rape, incest.
Make sure you give me a like and follow on YouTube, and maybe one day I can afford YouTube, so there'll be less ads. Also make sure you give this content creator a like and follow. They seem like a pretty good person. Um, back into.
To get good and how to, improve your gameplay is all out of client. And today I'm just going to be talking about what could possibly be done by behavior to make this type of thing better for newer players in an effort to make player retention better. Section 1. The new player experience. First off, we are going to rework universal perks to be useful instead of just kind of being whatever. Currently, Dead by Daylight has 5 free killers, 7 on console, and 7 free survivors, 9 on console. When you boot up the game for the first time, Trapper, Wraith, Billy, Nurse, and Huntress with Hag and Doctor for console, and Dwight, Meg, Nia, David, Bill, Claudette, and Jake with Ace and Fung on console. I do actually believe that behavior lowering the costs of older killers and survivors that they've been doing recently has been really good. Gotta give them credit where it's due.
True, true.
However, until you get a character to Prestige 1, all you have to work with are that character's perks and universal perks. And universal perks aren't the best. Who genuinely uses This Is Not Happening? Or Shattered Hope? Universal perks aren't even niche or excelling in a certain area. Most of them just suck, even compared to other universal perks. Things like Deja Vu, Hope, No One Escapes Death, and Spies from the Shadows, compared to things like Premonition and Dark Sense, or Shattered Hope and Unrelenting. Bad perks should be brought up to
Yeah,
properly match the strengths or fairness of other perks, especially seeing as these are the only perks that new players will be allowed to use for a good.
I'll pause it right there. Talk about universal perks. So when I first came into the game, it's when the Stranger Things DLC was still kind of banned because of the contract being expired for a little while. They eventually brought Stranger Things back into it, but because of that, perks like Surge, Bear Together, those were all universal perks for me, and they ended up helping me out a lot with playing games because they're just a lot better than most of the universal perks to begin with. I got them for free. I didn't even realize Bear Together was a perk, and I used it all the time with Kindred, and it was such a big help for me learning the game and actually kind of developing game sense of where Earth survivors were. And right now, a lot of the universal perks, they are not good at all, unfortunately.
Amount of time. Next up, we would be simplifying the Emblem System and making the monthly grind easier. This would allow for newer players to get blood points much more easily and unlock perks for all of their characters much more easily as well.
And that's the key, right? Skilled play leads to wins. If they don't, are they really skilled plays? Right? If your skilled play doesn't get you to win, was it really a skilled play in the first place?
This statement is still kind of a pretty good example of what's wrong with the mentality of how Dead by Daylight is designed. Survivors can be wholly altruistic, die for their team, make sure their team gets a 3 out every single game, and they are still punished by the MMR system? Killer at least makes somewhat more sense, as, you know, more
That's
kills
true.
does equal doing better, sure. But I think that it, being the pip and emblem system, at least rewarded hooks more than kills. I don't think incentivization of kicking a player out of the game to need pressure is a good design choice necessarily, especially against newer players lacking an anti-tunnel or looping skill, who will just get a 3-minute game every time they load up because they play against a killer who's better. There isn't a ranked mode in Dead by Daylight.
If a survivor escapes alive, that's a win for the survivor. Killer kills a survivor, that's a win for the killer.
I genuinely believe that an 8-hook, 0-kill game takes more skill than a 3-hook, 1-kill game. The emblem system is inherently flawed in that regard, but especially the survival category that is extremely feast or famine. You either escape or you don't. It would be cool if we just rework that category where if your team gets out, you'd get points in that. Because, you know, you were a
Agreed.
part of their
We actually
escape.
need like a
It's a team
competitive
game for
mode in
survivors.
DbD.
And honestly, reward caps on emblems could be removed or even doubled per category, because as someone who runs the killer, or, you know, skill, someone runs the killer the entire game could get less blood points than someone who holds the generator button for 5 minutes and escapes while their teammate is looping. Another thing I would like to see is allowing for players to try out new killers in custom games against bots before buying them. I think allowing for players to try out a killer for a game or two against bots would be a great benefit. I
That
really
would
like
be
the
very
idea of the
nice,
Splinter offerings. I understand they were removed
especially
in the
for
past due to
custom
hackers of
games.
using them and forcing people to play as the killer, so I think this is a nice little middle ground. A lot of players have fond memories of being able to try out a killer before, like, you know, fully committing to buying them, and this would be coming back in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just against bots while learning or trying them for the first time. In a vacuum, I think splinters would be cool to return, assuming that hackers just like
But
couldn't do
you
that anymore.
still
I
need
don't know
to
if that's like a possible
actually
thing, but
level up the
if it was a
killer as
thing,
well,
just
so you
make the
gotta watch out for
splinter like
that.
not even an offering. Just be like,
Got
okay,
prestige when we get
splinter,
the
I use this
perks.
on my killer, I run adept, and then there you go. I can play it in a game for whatever. Again, I'm not a game designer, I'm just here for the ideas. Next, there should be an in-game explanation for how every single killer works in client. This is the important, in the Dead by Daylight client. I should be able to click play, go to the tutorial, like new section thing, and find out what things do. It shouldn't be required to open a wiki to understand how half the role of a game works in a multiplayer game. I genuinely think that's crazy. Despite my issues with
True.
MOBAs in general, like, you know, Dota, League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm, etc., the character menus for them are fantastic. You have a rundown of every killer's abilities, their talents in the games that have them, and what they can do, as well as their numbers. Dead by
I need to
Daylight
play me a MOBA
kind
game.
of
I haven't
has
played one of
this
those in a
with
while.
like the killer height,
Do y'all want to see
speed,
me play one?
etc. in killer bios, but there's never an explanation past a wall of text. Some people, like me, honestly, are visual learners. Videos demonstrating each killer in Dead by Daylight, again, in client, would go a long way towards helping new players, or even offering blood point rewards for watching through the how to play against killer, or how to play as killer videos, so new players would get rewarded for learning. Just put that in the tutorial section, and then you get like a little, you know, here's how to play against them. Oh, you struggle against this killer, you know, here's like an easy tutorial for this killer, here's a medium tutorial, here's like a hard tutorial, and then it would be all sorts of things talking about the
True,
killer,
true.
all their techs, how to counter the techs, how to play against.
Yeah, with that, I will say, like, I could really get behind that possibility of having better tutorials in DbD, because we need something to kind of bridge the gap from newer players to more experienced veteran players. The only reason I know how to do like half the things I know how to do is because I spent like thousands upon thousands of hours into this game, looking up things on Wikipedia, learning different things, and like even then, like you can learn word of mouth through different things, and somebody can teach you wrong. At one point, I knew a guy who was trying to tell me Vigil does not stack, and I literally go on Wiki, and it's like the only perk of that nature, like the Vigil Leader Streetwise nature, that actually stats. I'm not sure why Vigil is exactly that way, where it's the only one that stats, but it is. Um, so just being able to figure out like, hey, this is a killer, this is what they do. Um, just a quick rundown of their power, and maybe some of the add-ons if possible. Almost like you were going to the killer select menu when you just tap pause on your game. Where it shows you your Wi-Fi, shows you the killer's Wi-Fi, shows all your team perks, and then it shows the killer and their power once the killer is actually in chase with somebody. I think that'd be very, very handy. You can maybe make it just for stealth killers. Make it after the killer is in like down somebody or after like a good minute of chase or something like that. Just so Ghost Faces and Michael Myers are not affected badly, but that would help out solo queue a bunch and just kind of bridge the gap in between solo queues and Swifts.
Them, and just in general reward learning and skill. I think that would be great. And then, of
I do
course,
like
you
the
would
blood
improve
point
upon the
incentives
tutorial
too.
itself in general, past the extreme basics. This could be placed in the, again, advanced tutorial section, where Survivors players would be taught to be better by tutorials about what looping is, resource management,
It would
zoning,
help
better
in the
game
common
sense,
terms.
etc. I will admit that when I first started playing Dead by Daylight, I had no idea what running the killer was. I would throw pallets outside of chase because, well, they can't get me if there's a block of wood in the way, and then I can get away quicker, type of thing. Killers probably really loved playing against me. And yes, genuinely a skill issue, but I don't think a tutorial teaching you how to play should avoid teaching you more things in the game. I knew how to throw a
True.
pallet, but I never got told, hey, maybe you should save that pallet for when you're in chase to stun the killer. And I don't really think the loading screen tips do a whole lot, honestly. Like, it's just stuff like, oh, press space to hit a skill check. It's like, I even used to think that the exposed status meant the killer could see me. And with that as a lovely segue, I'm now going to talk about better in-game tooltips for
Yeah.
what does what. Currently, there is no place inside the DbD client to just read what things do. Sure, you can just go perk by perk, but there isn't like a list of status effects, what they do, examples of what causes them, etc. Also, the in-game tooltips, again,
True.
just aren't really that useful. The ones that says, here's the killer you're facing, like the first few times, like, that's nice, I guess. And then after that, there's nothing to go to learn about what they do, really, except, again, out of the client. And I think that they should put more stuff in the client. Just have more info in-game regardless. Tooltips could be the things that apply past just do generators to escape level of tips.
Is she texting someone behind your back? A
Oh
single
my
Spokio search
goodness.
can help you find out who she's messaging.
I would
Make
also
sure you know.
like another
Sure you
thing
know,
where you could
always.
sort perks based off of what they do. For instance, perks would be sorted with tags such as generator, aura, killer info, etc. Perks could have multiple tags, like deja vu could be a generator and information tag. No one escapes
Oh,
death
that would
could
be
an
cool,
endgame
having
lethality
tags.
hex tag. And then you could pick and choose tags to sort by in the perk menu, seeing as how there's over 7 pages of perks at this point. The ability to
But you
sort
can
them
kind of
around
already do
by
that with
what you
Aura,
need
but
at that
even then
moment
I
would be
feel
pretty
like
big, and newer
except
players should be
some I
able to
wouldn't
find things
consider.
that do what they'd want them to do. The current search bar is okay. It's just very, very bare bones.
And making your
That
own
only really
pads
works
would
on
be
finding
cool too.
keywords
Like
and
if you
names.
could
The
highlight
tag
your
system would
favorite
be added
ones.
as well as the search bar for those looking for perks to do certain things instead of looking for an exact perk. So you'd be able to be like, oh, I need some slowdown. Let me type in slowdown. Oh, the slowdown tag. Boom. Oh, deadlock, pain res, grim embrace. Wow, look at all my options. Like it would be great. Now, section 2, expanding upon communication. Currently, there really isn't a way for survivors outside of Swift, of course, to communicate with one another. The HUD elements for what a survivor is doing, which is relatively new, mind you, is very bare bones level of communication, and I think that a quick chat wheel would help shrink the gap between Swift and solo queue, as well as allowing players to communicate what's going on more easily, even with simple commands, not necessarily the gestures like the point or the wave or the come here type thing, just like a command that would show text by the player saying it, such as I'm going for the save, or killers on me, or do generators, would be an immense help. Of course, they'd make it so it isn't like spammable, because like I can already tell that someone's gonna get in chase. They're lasting more than 2 seconds. It's like do gens, do gens, do gens, do gens, do gens, do gens. Like obviously with like spam, repetition, etc. I think that bridging the gap between Swift with your friends and solo queue is important because a lot of people do play by themselves, and I am not saying that you should get punished for
Oh
playing with
yeah,
your
yeah, they
friends.
should
I think
definitely
that you should be
bridge
able
the
to
gap.
play better as a team without having to be in a call with your team. Section 3, blood point offerings being made universal within the role. Have you ever wanted to play another character because they just came out, or you like their aesthetic, or your last played simply isn't really speaking to you anymore, but you feel this weird obligation to play your old character until you get enough blood point offerings on the new character? This is also prevalent for players with more hours than newbies, of course, but it's still a fantastic change idea. Basically, all offerings that give blood points would be made universal within role. For example, survivor puddings, wreath offerings would be applicable when playing any killer, and you would have a pool to
Okay,
pull
I'm
them
gonna
from.
skip
Same
around a little bit.
issue, and I'm doing it
Get
for
some
me because if
collisions.
you've
That
seen
would be
any of my other
helpful.
series of like Whipped into Shape where I have to explain, not worth it. There are
They
hundreds
definitely
of
need to rework the Shrine of
perks in Dead by
Secrets.
Daylight,
It's
and the
an
shrine has
outdated
4
system,
spots.
unfortunately.
Sometimes those 4 spots can just be free perks. It should have more perks, even
It should allow you better variety.
a learning type of thing, kind of a getting more blood points type of thing. Like it's a bunch of things rolled into one.
Random loadouts would be cool, but the
This
big
is
benefit
only
of things like Chaos Shuffle was everybody was random.
except
So I
this would
feel
apply to
like
both
we
sides
should
and simply allow for players to
possibly.
experience a wide variety of perks.
I would say the focus needs to be on 2v8, but eventually see about having a Chaos Shuffle mode. Because apparently a lot of people like it, and I don't really see a point of it. I'm a control freak. I'll actually like being able to pick and choose my perks to try counter the meta.
But this type of thing would be decent for new. We love to be the
But it
best
was great
at
also for
activity. Is
teaching
there anything
people
I
new
missed
perks.
as far as improving the new player
And
experience?
that does it for
What would be
today. I
helpful?
hope everybody has a
Let me
great
know.
and wonderful
Hang in there
day.
in
I
the
will
same
see y'all.
series as I have
Bye.
a lot
Bye
more
bye.
ideas. So keep an eye out for that. I usually play Nemesis and make Nemesis content. This is just me kind of
There
branching
we go.
a little bit.